Hey everyone, welcome back to English Learning Podcast. Today we're talking about a game-changing topic, how to learn anything smartly. Let me ask you this. Have you ever spent hours studying something only to feel like you've made zero progress? Or maybe you've tried to learn English or another skill, but it feels like nothing is sticking and you're getting frustrated. You're not alone. Most people struggle with learning because they're using the wrong methods. They're working harder, but not smarter.
That's right. It's not about how much time you spend learning, it's about how you learn. If you're not using the right techniques, you could spend hours studying and see little to no improvement. But when you learn smartly, you'll retain information faster, understand it better, and actually enjoy the process.
Today, we're going to reveal the smart learning techniques that will save you time, increase your understanding, and help you learn faster, whether it's English, a new skill, or anything else you want to master.
And here's the best part. These techniques are simple and easy to apply. By the end of this episode, you'll have a step-by-step plan to start learning smartly, and you'll see real results almost immediately.
So stick with us, because this could change the way you learn forever.
Chapter 1. Why most people struggle with learning. Let's start by talking about why learning feels so difficult for most people. Here's the truth. It's not because you're not smart enough. It's not because you don't have the talent or the ability. The problem is the way you've been taught to learn. Think about how most of us learned in school. You sit at a desk for hours, the teacher talks, you write down some notes, and then you're expected to memorize everything the night before an exam. And then what happens? You remember it long enough to pass the test, but a week later, it's gone. That's because traditional learning relies too much on passive learning, listening and memorizing, instead of active learning, where you engage with the material and make real connections in your brain.
Exactly! I had a student named Diego from Brazil who was trying to learn English. He told me, "I've been studying English for 2 years. I listen to podcasts, I watch TV shows, but when I try to have a conversation, my mind goes blank." He was stuck in the traditional learning cycle, listening, memorizing, and forgetting. The problem wasn't that Diego wasn't working hard enough, it was that he wasn't processing the information deeply enough. He was hearing the language, but he wasn't actively practicing it or using it in real-life situations. His brain treated the information like temporary data and deleted it.
And here's the second big problem, trying to learn too much at once. Most learners try to absorb too much information too quickly, thinking that the more they study, the faster they'll improve. But that's not how the brain works. Your brain has a limited capacity for processing new information at one time. When you flood it with too much data, vocabulary, grammar rules, pronunciation tips, it shuts down. It's like trying to download 100 apps onto your phone at the same time. The system crashes. I had a student named Emma who was trying to learn English vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation all at once. She told me, "I'm studying for 2 hours a day, but I'm not getting anywhere." That's because her brain was overloaded. It couldn't handle that much information at once. Once we broke it down and focused on one skill at a time, first vocabulary, then sentence structure, then pronunciation, Emma started improving immediately. She told me, "It's like my brain can finally breathe."
And the third problem? Most people don't review what they've learned. Your brain needs repetition to store information in long-term memory. If you learn something once and never review it, your brain decides it's not important and deletes it. Think of your brain like a muscle. If you go to the gym and lift weights once, you're not going to get stronger. But if you lift weights consistently, your muscles grow. Your brain works the same way. The more you use and review information, the stronger those neural connections become. I had a student named Marco who told me, "I understand English when I hear it, but when I try to speak, I forget the words." That's because he was learning passively, listening and reading, but not reviewing or practicing consistently.
And here's why review is so powerful. Your brain decides what's important based on how often you use it. If you hear a word once and never use it again, your brain treats it like junk mail and throws it away. But if you hear it, speak it, and review it several times, your brain recognizes it as valuable and keeps it. Let me give you an example. Imagine you learn the word productive. If you just write it down and never use it again, you'll forget it. But if you say, "My day was really productive," or "That meeting was productive," your brain links the word to real life situations. And that's when it sticks.
That's why most learning methods fail. They focus too much on passive learning and not enough on active engagement and repetition. You're taught to memorize information instead of using it in real-life situations. And when you don't reinforce it, your brain lets it go. But here's the good news. The problem isn't you. The problem is the method. And once you switch to smarter learning techniques, you'll start seeing results faster than you ever thought possible.
That's exactly why we're here today. We're going to give you a smarter way to learn, a method that's based on how your brain actually works. No more wasting time, no more forgetting what you've learned, just simple, powerful strategies that will help you retain information faster and use it naturally in real conversations. By the end of this episode, you'll have a clear, step-by-step plan to learn smarter, not harder. And trust me, once you apply these techniques, you'll wonder why you didn't learn this way sooner.
And here's the best part. This works for anything. Whether you're learning English, a new skill, or even trying to master a sport, these techniques will help you improve faster and retain information longer.
So stay with us, because in the next chapter, we're going to break down the SMART learning formula, the exact steps you need to follow to learn faster, remember more, and feel more confident when you speak.
Trust me, this is going to change the way you learn forever. Chapter 2. The SMART Learning Formula. All right, now that we know why most learning methods don't work, let's talk about the solution. We've put together a simple but powerful formula for smart learning. If you follow this, you'll learn faster, remember more, and actually use what you've learned in real-life situations without spending hours studying. And here's the key. It's not about working harder. It's about working smarter. Most people think that improving faster means studying longer, but that's not true. The key is how you learn, not how much time you spend learning. This formula is based on how your brain processes information. Once you understand that, learning becomes so much easier. You'll be able to remember vocabulary more easily, speak more confidently, and improve faster than you ever thought possible.
That's right. This formula is based on 3 key principles that work with your brain, not against it. If you follow these steps, you'll not only learn faster, but you'll retain what you learn long term. The formula has 3 key parts. 1. Focus. Learn one thing at a time. 2. Active learning. Engage with the material. Don't just passively listen. 3rd, spaced repetition. Review at the right intervals to lock it into your memory.
Let's break down each part. And trust me, when you apply this, you'll see results fast. 1. Focus on one thing at a time. Let me be clear. Multitasking is the enemy of learning. Most people think that they can learn vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation at the same time, but that's exactly why they're stuck. Your brain works best when it's focused on one thing at a time. When you split your attention, you weaken the learning process. Your brain is trying to juggle too many tasks at once, and that's why you forget things. I had a student named Diego who was trying to improve his English. He told me, I'm learning vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation all at the same time, but I'm not improving. That's because his brain was overwhelmed. He was spreading his focus too thin. So we changed his strategy. We focused on one thing at a time. First, we worked on vocabulary. Once he got comfortable with that, we moved on to grammar. Then we practiced pronunciation. Within 2 weeks, Diego told me, it feels like my brain finally understands English. Here's the strategy. Give your brain one task to focus on. Day 1. Focus on learning 10 new vocabulary words. Day 2. Work on improving your pronunciation. Day 3. Focus on sentence structure. When you give your brain one clear task, you learn faster. You don't need to overload yourself. You just need to go deep on one thing at a time. Think of it like learning a sport. If you're learning how to play basketball, you wouldn't try to master dribbling, shooting, and defense all at once. You'd practice dribbling first, then shooting, then defense. Language learning works the same way.
And here's the best part. Focusing on one skill at a time gives you faster wins. When you see quick progress in one area, it motivates you to keep going. Success builds momentum. So if you feel overwhelmed, stop trying to do everything at once. Focus on one thing, master it, then move to the next. 2. Engage in active learning. All right, now that you know how to focus, let's talk about the second key to smart learning, active learning. Most people are passive learners. They listen to podcasts, watch videos, or read books, but they don't engage with the material, and that's why they forget it. Think about it. If you watch a movie in English, you might understand it, but can you actually remember the dialogue afterward? Probably not, because you were consuming the language, not engaging with it. I had a student named Rachel who told me, I listen to podcasts every day, but when I try to speak, I can't remember the words. That's because listening alone isn't enough. You have to actively use what you learn.
Exactly. Here's how you switch from passive to active learning. 1. Speak the words out loud. If you're learning new vocabulary, don't just write it down, say it out loud. Speaking activates the language center in your brain and strengthens the memory. 2. Use new words in sentences. When you learn a new word, create 3 sentences using that word. For example, if you learn the word productive, my day was really productive. I had a productive conversation with my boss. This new system is very productive. 3. Teach someone else. If you explain a concept to someone else, your brain processes the information more deeply. 4th, test yourself. Don't just read over your notes. Close the book and try to recall what you learned. If you struggle, that's good. It means your brain is building stronger connections.
That's why writing things down is so effective. When you physically write a word, you engage multiple parts of your brain, and that makes the memory stronger. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. Mistakes are proof that your brain is learning.
3. Use spaced repetition. The third part of the formula is what makes the learning stick. Spaced repetition. Your brain forgets information unless you review it at the right intervals. That's why you forget things you cram for an exam. You haven't reinforced the memory enough. Spaced repetition works because it reminds your brain at the perfect time, just before you forget. Here's the strategy. Day 1. Learn 10 new words. Day 2. Review yesterday's words, plus add 5 new ones. Day 3. Review the first 2 days' words, plus add 5 more. Day 7. Do a full review of the week's words. This creates a memory pattern in your brain. Every time you review the word, your brain strengthens the connection, and eventually, it becomes permanent. I had a student named Kevin who started using spaced repetition for vocabulary. After 2 weeks, he told me, "It's weird. I'm not even thinking about the words anymore. They just come to me." That's because his brain had locked the words into long-term memory.
And the best part? You don't have to study for hours. If you follow this system, 15 minutes a day is enough to see real progress.
So stop cramming. Stop trying to learn everything at once. Focus, engage, and repeat. That's how you build permanent knowledge.
Let's recap the SMART learning formula. Focus. One thing at a time. Active learning. Speak, write, and engage with the material. Spaced repetition. Review strategically to lock it into memory.
This is how you learn smartly, not just fast, but effectively. And once you apply this formula, you'll start noticing improvements almost immediately.
And in the next chapter, we're going to show you how to apply this to real-life situations, so you don't just remember what you've learned. You can actually use it with confidence.
Trust me, this is where your learning starts to feel effortless.
Chapter 3. Apply what you learn. All right, you've learned how to focus, engage, and review. But here's the truth. Learning isn't complete until you actually use it. Think about it. You can memorize hundreds of words, study grammar rules, and watch English movies. But if you can't use what you've learned in a real conversation, it's not real fluency. Fluency isn't about what you know. It's about what you can use. I had a student named Diego who told me, "I understand a lot of English when I hear it, but when I try to speak, I freeze." That's because Diego was learning passively. He was absorbing the language, but not using it. And here's the thing. Your brain doesn't store information long-term unless you actively use it. It's like learning to drive a car. You can read a book about driving, watch YouTube videos, and study the traffic laws. But until you actually sit behind the wheel and drive, you don't really know how to do it. That's why this step is so important. You need to take what you've learned and apply it in real-life situations. That's when your brain recognizes the information as useful. And that's when it sticks.
Exactly. I had a student named Rachel who learned 500 new English words in 3 months. But when I asked her to have a conversation, she froze. She told me, "I know the words, but I can't use them." That's because Rachel was studying, not applying. So we switched strategies. Instead of just memorizing words, we focused on using them. Every time Rachel learned a new word, she had to create a sentence with it, use it in a conversation, and try to work it into her daily life. After 2 weeks, Rachel told me, "The words are starting to come to me naturally." That's the power of application.
And here's the good news. It's not difficult to apply what you've learned. You just need to practice in the right way. Let me give you some simple but powerful ways to apply new information, starting today. 1. Use new words in a conversation. The fastest way to build fluency is to use new words immediately in real conversations. Your brain will only store information it sees as valuable, and conversations are valuable because they're connected to real social interaction. Examples. If you learn the word productive, use it when talking to a friend. "I had a really productive day today." If you learn the word challenge, say it during a conversation about work. "That was a tough challenge, but I learned a lot." If you learn the word improve, say it when talking about personal goals. "I'm trying to improve my pronunciation." The more often you use a word in a natural situation, the faster your brain stores it in long-term memory.
I had a student named Marco who told me, I'm scared to speak because I don't want to make mistakes. But here's the secret. Mistakes are part of the process. When you use a word incorrectly, your brain gets feedback, and that helps you adjust and remember the right way next time. So don't wait until you feel ready. Start using new words now. Even if you make mistakes, you're still learning.
2. Practice through writing. Writing is one of the most underrated tools for language learning, but it's incredibly powerful. When you write, you're organizing your thoughts, working on grammar, and practicing vocabulary, all at the same time. I had a student named Aisha who told me, I can speak okay, but I'm terrible at writing. That's because she wasn't practicing it enough. So we started a daily routine. She had to write 3 sentences every day using the new words she had learned. Here's how you can apply this. If you learn a new word, write a sentence using it. If you learn a new grammar rule, write a short paragraph applying that rule. If you're trying to improve fluency, write about your day in English. Example, if you learn the word improve, write a sentence like, I'm trying to improve my speaking skills by practicing every day. Writing forces your brain to create structure, and that helps information stick.
3. Record yourself. Speaking. This one might feel uncomfortable at first, but trust me, it works. When you record yourself speaking, you force your brain to create full sentences under pressure. And that's exactly how real-life conversations work. I had a student named Kevin who said, I feel confident when I'm studying, but when I try to speak, I freeze. So I told him, record yourself. Every day, he would record a 1-minute video talking about his day. After a week, Kevin told me, my brain is starting to think in English. That's because his brain was adjusting to the pressure of real conversation. Try this. Take a new word you've learned and record yourself using it in a sentence. Talk about your day for 1 minute using the new vocabulary you've learned. After a week, listen to the recordings and notice how much more natural you sound. Hearing yourself speak gives you instant feedback, and that feedback helps your brain adjust and improve.
4. Create real-life scenarios. Here's the secret. The more you recreate real-life situations, the more comfortable you'll be in actual conversations. Example, if you're learning travel vocabulary, practice ordering food at a restaurant in English. If you're learning business vocabulary, imagine having a job interview and practice answering common questions. If you're learning small talk, practice introducing yourself and asking someone how their day is going. When you practice in realistic situations, your brain connects the language to the experience, and that's when it sticks.
And here's the best part. You don't need a native speaker to practice with. You can have conversations with yourself, use language apps, or even role play with a friend. The goal is to practice speaking naturally, without pressure. Interactive challenge. All right, let's put this into action right now. I'm going to give you 3 words, and I want you to create a sentence using them. Don't overthink it. Just say the first thing that comes to mind. Interesting. Example, that movie was really interesting. Challenge. Example, that was a difficult challenge, but I learned a lot. Improve. Example, I'm trying to improve my listening skills.
Chapter 4. How to stay motivated and track your progress. All right, now that you know how to apply what you've learned, let's talk about the part that separates successful learners from everyone else. Staying motivated. Here's the truth. Motivation isn't something you're born with. It's something you build. Most people give up on learning because they don't feel like they're making progress, even when they are. And that's not because they're not improving, it's because they're not tracking their progress. I had a student named Diego who told me, I've been learning English for 6 months, but I feel like I'm not improving. When I asked him if he was tracking his progress, he said no. So we started keeping track of his daily practice. And within 2 weeks, he said, I didn't realize how much I was improving until I saw it written down. That's the key. When you measure progress, you create motivation. Your brain needs proof that you're getting better. And when you see that progress, you'll feel more confident and motivated to keep going.
Exactly. Motivation isn't about willpower, it's about seeing results. And the good news is, you don't need to be perfect to feel motivated. You just need to notice small improvements and build momentum. So today, we're going to give you 3 powerful strategies to track your progress and keep your motivation high, even when it feels like you're not improving.
1. Keep a language journal. One of the most effective ways to track progress is to keep a simple language journal. Writing things down helps your brain process and organize information, and it gives you visible proof of your improvement over time. Here's how to set it up. Date. Write the date so you can track your progress. New words. Write down the new vocabulary you learned that day. Sentences. Create 2 or 3 sentences using the new words. Challenges. Write down any words or grammar structures you struggled with. Wins. Write down one small success you had that day. E.g., I spoke to a stranger in English today. I had a student named Rachel who told me, I feel like I'm stuck. But when we started her language journal, she could see the list of new words and phrases growing every day, and that gave her confidence. When you see your progress in writing, your brain registers it as real, and that builds motivation to keep going.
2. Create a Don't Break the Chain calendar. This is one of the simplest but most effective motivation tricks, and it works for anything you're trying to learn. The idea comes from Jerry Seinfeld, the comedian. He said that to improve his comedy writing, he would write every day and mark an X on his calendar. After a week, he had a chain of X's, and his goal was simple: don't break the chain. Here's how to do it for language learning. Get a physical or digital calendar. Every day you practice English. Put an X on the calendar. Your goal is to create a long chain of X's and keep it going. The longer the chain gets, the more motivated you'll feel to keep going. I had a student named Marco who used this method. He started practicing English for just 10 minutes a day, and after 2 weeks, he had a chain of 14 X's. He told me, I didn't want to break the chain, so I kept going. That's how powerful momentum is. And here's the thing. Even if you only practice for 5 minutes, you still get an X. It's not about perfection. It's about consistency.
3. Record yourself once a week. This one feels uncomfortable for a lot of learners, but it's one of the fastest ways to see improvement. Once a week, record yourself speaking English for 1 to 2 minutes. Talk about your day, your goals, or even describe something you've learned. Here's why this works. When you listen back to the recording, you'll hear your pronunciation and fluency improving. After a month, you'll have proof of how much you've improved. You'll be able to spot weaknesses and work on them directly. I had a student named Emma who hated listening to herself speak, but I convinced her to try this. After 3 weeks, she told me, I can't believe how much more natural I sound. That's because her brain was processing the feedback and adjusting automatically.
And here's the trick. You don't need to be perfect. If you make mistakes in the recording, that's a good thing. Your brain will adjust and improve each time.
Motivation boosting tips. All right, now let's talk about how to stay motivated when you hit a wall. Because here's the truth. You're going to have days when you feel stuck. That's normal, but it's also when most people quit. 1. Focus on progress, not perfection. You don't need to be perfect, you just need to improve. If you're better than you were last month, you're winning. 2. Celebrate small wins. Did you have a successful conversation in English? Did you remember a difficult word? Celebrate it, because small wins create momentum. 3. Forgive yourself when you miss a day. If you miss a day of practice, don't stress. Just get back on track the next day. Success is about consistency, not perfection. 4. Keep learning fun. Watch shows you enjoy, listen to music you love, and talk about topics that interest you. Learning happens faster when you enjoy the process.
All right, let's put this into action right now. I want you to do 3 things today. Start a language journal. Write down 3 new words you learned today. Start a Don't Break the Chain calendar. Mark today as day 1. Record yourself speaking for 1 minute. Talk about your day. And remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. The goal is to build consistency and let the progress happen naturally.
And here's your challenge for the week. Keep the streak going for 7 days. At the end of the week, look back at your journal and listen to your recording. You'll be amazed at how much progress you've made.
Let's recap how to stay motivated and track progress. Keep a language journal. Track new words, sentences, and challenges. Create a Don't Break the Chain calendar. Build momentum through consistency. Record yourself once a week. Measure and hear your progress. Celebrate small wins. Focus on progress, not perfection.
Motivation comes from seeing progress, so give yourself proof that you're improving. When you see how far you've come, you'll feel unstoppable.
All right, you've got the tools. You know how to focus, engage, apply, and track your progress. Now it's time to put it into action. Learning smartly isn't about perfection. It's about consistency. Even small daily steps will create big improvements over time.
So here's your challenge. Start today. Write down 3 new words in your journal. Practice using them in a sentence and mark your first X on the calendar. Keep going, and you'll be amazed at how fast you improve.
You've got this. Trust the process, stay consistent, and keep growing. We can't wait to hear about your progress. See you in the next episode.